Hello everyone. Myself Dr. Lohit Arora, Senior Registrar MSMC. So today we will be discussing regarding oral cancer. So we have here with us Dr. Vivek Shetty sir. Hello sir. He is consultant in charge Head Neck Oncology Department in MSMC. So just a quick brief, like what is oral cancer and what all are like signs, symptoms, what are the like different causes, and how it can be managed and how it can be diagnosed and managed. So, sir, can you tell us about what are the signs and symptoms regarding the oral cancer?
So, oral cavity has many different subsets, and the symptoms of cancer depends on which part of the oral cavity is affected. The most common cancer in India is the buccal mucosal cancer, which is the cancer of the cheek, and second common is the tongue cancer. So, the most common symptom of any cancer in the mouth is an ulcer which does not heal within 3 weeks. So if you have an ulcer which is not healing within 3 weeks, then it needs to be seen by a specialist. Other symptoms of oral cancer mainly any white or red patch, which can be a pre-malignant condition, which is something that has not yet become cancerous but which needs to be observed closely. Any difficulty in opening the mouth, any slurring of speech, any loosening of the teeth, any swelling of the jaw, or any swelling in the neck. So if any of these symptoms persist for at least 3 weeks, then it is advised to get a specialist's opinion.
So, sir, as you have explained different signs and symptoms, so sir, can you tell us about like what are the main causes which will cause the oral cancer?
The most common cause for oral cancer, not just in India but anywhere in the world, is tobacco. Tobacco in any form, but in India most commonly it is chewed tobacco, but it can also be smoked tobacco. And in any form it is dangerous, and more than 90% of our patients get oral cancer because of tobacco. And it's not only tobacco, even aracanut, which is mixed with tobacco to make gutka, is also dangerous. Even by itself, like even pan masala is dangerous. It is known to be a carcinogen even without tobacco. So aracanut and tobacco are the most important cause for oral cancer. Other than this, alcohol by itself is also carcinogen, but when it's mixed with tobacco, it is even more potent. Other than this, sharp teeth. These are the most common causes. Sharp teeth, you can't say it's a cause, but chronic irritation caused by sharp teeth is another cause that sometimes in patients who are predisposed and they have no habit, this can be one of the things that is looked at as a cause. One point I do want to emphasize is we do get a small percentage of patients who walk into our OPD and who have symptoms of cancer and who have a lesion, but they have no habit history. They have never smoked, they have never chewed, and they are very perplexed. Now, cancer doesn't always have a cause. There are about 10% of our patients who are unfortunate, who are just unlucky and get this disease even without having a habit. So, although it is rare, it can happen, and this is more common in tongue cancer than in cheek cancer, where without any habits the patient can develop these symptoms. So I would advise, don't get too worked up, but if you do have some doubt and if you have develop a lesion which is not getting better in 3 weeks, it is always better to get clarified with a specialist.
Okay, sir. As you have explained, sir, regarding the habits and everything, like what all are investigations required for the diagnosis? Like the patient will get confirmation, okay, he is having cancer or he is not having cancer.
Okay. So any cancer, we need two things. One, we need to know whether it is cancer, and if it is a cancer, what type of cancer it is. And the second thing we need to know is what is the stage of the disease. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get a tissue biopsy. So we do this in it's a small OPD procedure. we just give some local anesthesia, take a chunk of the tumor as well as some normal tissue around it, and send it to our histology lab. Our pathologists will make logs, slides, and look at it and tell us exactly whether it is cancer, and if yes, what type of cancer it is. So this is the tissue diagnosis part. The second thing is to know the stage. So the stage what we commonly do is we do a thorough clinical examination. We look at the oral cavity, we see the extent, we look at the neck, see if it has spread there, if there are any lymph nodes which are suspicious, and then we do a scan. So we need to do a scan of the neck as well as the chest. This is the most. This is what is practiced in our unit. We do a CT of the neck and chest. But if it is a tongue lesion, then doing an MRI of the neck is more advantageous. So what exact investigation to do for staging depends on how big the lesion is and where exactly it is. There are many different modalities available like CT, MRI, and ultrasound, and also a PET. A PET is a full body scan which will tell us exactly where in the body the tumor is, other than it's not just confined to the head or neck, to the neck or chest. So we do a PET scan usually when the disease is fairly advanced and we are expecting that there may be disease elsewhere in the body. For small oral cancer or small tongue cancer, it may not be warranted, although there is no harm doing it. It is not always necessary to do a PET when it's a small disease and we're fairly certain that it is restricted to the mouth or just to the neck.
Sir, as you have mentioned about the investigation part, so now we have a patient with a cancer. So, sir, what are the different treatment modalities?
So, there are 3 modalities available for treatment of cancer in general: surgical, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. What we choose for a particular patient depends on, firstly, what type of cancer it is, where it is, what is the stage, and also whether he can tolerate that particular treatment. For oral cancer, whether it is buccal or tongue cancer, the preferred treatment option is surgery. As long as the tumor has not metastasized to distant parts beyond the neck, if it is not a metastatic disease, then the treatment of choice is surgery. The extent of surgery depends on how big the tumor is. We have to clear the primary completely with a good cuff of normal tissue around it of at least 5 millimeters. So that is the margin required for oral cancer, squamous cell carcinomas. And along with this, unless it's a very, very small primary which has not gone deeper than 3 millimeters, we need to do a neck dissection, because chances of spread to lymph nodes from an oral cavity tumor is very high. So the lymph nodes on the same side as the disease have to be cleared. And how many levels we clear again depends on where the primary is. For buccal mucosa cancers, generally levels 1 to 3 have to be cleared, and for tongue cancers up to level 4 has to be cleared. So this is the primary treatment option. So then we again analyze whatever we have removed to see whether we have removed it enough, what was the stage, how deep the tumor had gone, whether it had spread to the lymph nodes, whether it has come out of the capsule, whether there is any spread along the nerve, whether there is any spread along the blood vessels and lymphatic vessels. So all these things are analyzed by our pathologists and they give us a final report which will tell us the stage and all the risk factors involved. And based on this, we decide whether the patient needs any adjuvant treatment. Adjuvant treatment is radiotherapy, because in cancer we can have cells around the primary which cannot be seen, and hence we cannot remove them. So in order to treat this, we give something called adjuvant radiotherapy. So this is given to the surgical bed as well as to the lymph drainage areas. And whether to give this or not depends on the stage. So if it is first stage, then we don't have to give. If it is third or fourth stage, we definitely have to give. If it is second stage, then we analyze, we see how deep the tumor was, whether there was any perineural spread, and then we decide whether to give or not. There is no clear guidelines for stage 2 cancer, whether to give adjuvant therapy or not. But stage 1 and stage 3 and 4, it's fairly clear. It has to be, stage 1 it has to be given, if it is stage 3 and 4 it has to be given. And whether we add chemotherapy or not depends on two things: whether we have cleared the tumor completely with adequate margin, and the second risk factor, whether if the tumor has spread to the lymph node and it has come out through the capsule of the lymph node, then the chemotherapy is added to radiotherapy. Chemotherapy by itself is not indicated in oral cancers unless, of course, it's a metastatic disease where we cannot achieve cure.
So, sir, very beautifully you have described regarding the treatment part. Sir, I have seen many patients who are concerned about, like, after surgical treatment they will lose their jaw, they will lose their soft tissue. So what you can do for the reconstruction thing?
So that's a very important thing to discuss, because oral cancer has some very, very important fundamental functions in the human body. It's very important for eating, speaking, breathing, and your face is what you present to society. So that is what is associated with you as a person, your face. So it's a tricky thing, because treatment of oral cancer can and does affect at least one or more of these functions. And again, this depends on where the cancer is. If it is a cheek cancer, then it can affect your mouth opening and it can affect the way your face looks. So the shape of the face can change depending on how big the tumor is. If it is an early stage tumor, we can manage to do it almost without anybody being able to make out at first glance that this patient has had cancer. But as the size of the cancer increases and as the structures involved increases, this becomes more and more difficult. So as the cancer stage advances, our priority is not cosmesis but function. Of course, we try to restore the cosmetic, the aesthetic part as much as possible, but it is not always possible to make the face symmetrical or look exactly like it used to. So, and as far as possible, we try to replace like with like, but that again is also not always possible. If you take, for instance, tongue reconstruction, tongue is very important for speaking and eating, and also for breathing, because the space behind the tongue is what decides the airway. If the tongue keeps falling back, then breathing is also a problem. So if a large chunk of the tongue is removed, then all these functions are affected, and there is a chance that the patient can become tube dependent. So with our reconstruction, our goal is always to make sure that these basic functions are restored and then think about the aesthetics. Because the tongue, for instance, has 8 different muscles coming from both sides, and it has intrinsic muscles as well, which is why it is a phenomenally mobile structure. And we cannot restore it to the same extent that nature has made it. So it is difficult for us to promise the patient that we will, they will be exactly like before. But from our side, we try as far as possible to restore the volume of the tongue, to keep its mobility intact, and make sure that the patient's basic functions are not affected. And there is also a lot of social stigma because of the change in appearance and because of these issues like not being able to eat in public, drooling, and not being able to eat and not being able to swallow, needing specialized food like soft food, more liquid food. So, I know of patients who are scared to go out of their houses, scared to get back to work, scared of attending family events, attending functions, social gatherings. So, the treatment of oral cancer is not just about curing the cancer, but also about reintegrating the patient to society. And this is an area where I feel we are lagging because I don't think our patients get the attention that they deserve. We are trying to change that slowly. We need to get the rehabilitation specialists involved, like swallow therapists, speech therapists, uh, psychiatric counselor, psychologist. So these are all very, very important people in the post-treatment care, and the patient has to work with them, and not just the patient, even the caregiver needs a lot of counseling about how to deal with this diagnosis and the repercussions of the treatment. So getting out of cancer is not easy, and it's a long drawn out process and requires the help of a multidisciplinary team, and also a very, very strong support from the family.
Thank you so much, sir, that you have explained and you have given very good points on like matlab, how the society will accept the patient and so that social stigma that is going on after the patient get treated. So like we know that 90% of the oral cancer are caused by tobacco, and still the people are consuming. They know that it will cause cancer, but still they are consuming. They are taking the tobacco. So, sir, what we are doing and what government is doing to curb this menace?
So first let me address why tobacco is so popular in society. According to the last GATS survey, which is a global adult tobacco survey, which was conducted in 2016, about 28% of India's adult population uses tobacco in some form. This is both chewed as well as smoked. And this is an alarming statistic in itself. But the news is not all bad, because the first GATS survey in 2009 said that percentage was as high as 34. So there has been a good trend. There has been a decreasing trend of tobacco usage in society. But still 28% of India's adult population uses tobacco. So that's a huge population. And a lot still needs to be done. Now, why it is popular is a good question, because at the heart of it, tobacco is an addiction problem. Because nicotine is one of the most addicting substances known to man. There is one statistic which says that what is the percentage of people who get addicted to tobacco or any substance after first use, and with tobacco it's as high as 30%. And this is on par with cocaine and only less than heroin. Heroin is first, and tobacco and cocaine are joint second. It is more addicting than methamphetamine, than alcohol, than marijuana, the much maligned marijuana, which is actually very low, 8%. So it is 4 times as addicting as marijuana. So this is at the core of all the problems, because tobacco keeps you functional. So it's a stimulant, it keeps you functional, but it keeps you chained to the substance. And people don't see that they have a problem till it is quite late. And it's not just cancer. Tobacco causes myriad of health issues. The most common one being heart disease. Heart disease is the biggest killer as far as India is concerned. And more than 1/3 of these heart diseases are caused by tobacco. The lung disease. A lot of people say my neighbor has used tobacco for 60 years and is lived to a ripe old age of 80. That's not always the case. Each person's tolerance is different. And tobacco, the person may have lived, but what his quality of life is, we don't know, because smoking inevitably destroys your lungs. Whether you get cancer or not, you will get COPD, you will get heart disease. Stroke is another disease that is very commonly associated with smoking. GERD, infertility, the list is endless. So basically, all these problems exist, but people still use this, and it's not as though people don't know that tobacco is bad for them. More than 90% of users know that tobacco is bad, and at least more than 70% have tried to quit at some point, but less than 3% are actually successful in quitting. This is because nicotine is one of the most addicting substances known to man. Now, what we can do is prevent, because like I said, quit rates are very low, but the good thing is tobacco is a risk-taking behavior, and more than 90% of people who use tobacco, who are addicted to tobacco, start this habit before the age of 21, before the frontal lobe is fully formed, and when between that period between puberty and maturity. So that is the demographic where the person usually starts using it, and that is the demographic that is targeted by the tobacco industry. So our job is to make sure that our children are protected, that they are aware of the risks associated with it and realize that it is not cool. It is not a cool thing to do at all. It is not cool to be choking half, to be coughing half your lung out at the age of 50, to have black lips, to have difficulty in opening your mouth. These are not cool things. And I think the entertainment industry has to play a major role in this, because they can sway public opinion. And as long as they continue to portray smoking as a cool thing to do, the youth is going to follow. So these are some of the things that we can do. And as far as the government is concerned, so we are a signatory to WHO's FCTC, that is Framework Convention for Tobacco Control. And as per that requirement, we have enacted the COTPA law, which is the Cigarette and Other Tobacco Prevention Act. And these provide for some strong frameworks for control of tobacco. So certain things like the 60% of the cover of the cigarette or whatever the packaging has to be a warning, a strong anti-tobacco warning, and sale to minors is prohibited. It is a jailable offence. You cannot sell tobacco within 100 yards of an educational institute. You cannot sell single cigarettes. Cigarettes have to be sold with the packet warning. And so these are some of the laws that are enacted by the government. And other than this, the chewing of tobacco is banned by many states under the Food Safety Act. So there are laws in place, but of course implementation is difficult. The tobacco company always hides behind the farmers and the petty shop owners and say that their lives will be affected, their livelihood is affected if you ban tobacco. But that is not the case. These people need to be rehabilitated. I accept that it's not something that can be done overnight. And also, it's not a good idea to just ban a substance when there is so much demand for it. There are 28% of the country is addicted to it. If you just ban it, it's just going to lead to black marketing and illegal means of finding it. Because as long as there's demand in society, there will be supply in some form. So our role is to both reduce the demand for it and at the same time bring in stronger and stronger laws and implement it so that both these things can curb the menace of tobacco. And as the usage in society reduces, so will the economic power of the tobacco industry. Right now, it's an extremely lucrative business, and which is why it's very profitable and they are cash rich. So they can have these campaigns which try to derail anti-tobacco efforts. But as the usage reduces, as the profits reduce, and so will their power. That is when we can truly eradicate it. It's going to be a long drawn out process, but I am optimistic that we are heading towards the right direction. And there has been some, they are trying to make COTPA even stronger. They are trying to amend COTPA to make it even stronger and more difficult for the industry to target the youth and to sort of have more of an influence on the next generation. So the signs are definitely good. Government is showing intent, and we as the public also need to do our part to curb these plans.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful explanation regarding each and everything, like signs, symptoms, causes, treatment part, and the reconstruction, and how we can do for the this to just curb the menace of tobacco.
Rohit, and
Thank you so much, sir.
yeah, thank you. And on this World Cancer Day, let us take a pledge to live healthy and stop using tobacco or any other habit that will ruin us in the long run. Thank you.